welcome to the 92nd episode in our AI and You podcast series. Today is Sunday, April 24th, 2022, and I'm your host, Vicar Saidi. I'm a computer scientist and engineer, a lecturer, and a consultant. I'm also the author of several books. My most recent book is about artificial intelligence and is titled The Genome Affair. The Genome Affair is a speculative work. It examines what the world might be like if some of the more extraordinary capabilities forecast to be realized in AI over the next 20 to 30 years were actually realized today. Given the growing list of frightening existential threats humankind now faces, the book pays particular attention to the impact AI is expected to have on world affairs. The book is available in ebook format for those who prefer to read on a digital device, but it's also available in a high-quality paperback edition. The Genome Affair is available on Amazon, so I hope you'll take the time to read it and to leave a review. Amazon book reviews are very helpful for writers. I'm very interested in how science and technology influence world affairs and the big questions facing humankind. Studying at the confluence of the great disciplines of human history, political science and thought, international affairs, science and technology, offers a deep understanding and pedagogically important lessons of how advances in human endeavor have influenced and impacted civilization. I'm available to give talks on artificial intelligence and its related technologies, and on the impact AI is expected to have, or is already having, on our world. If you'd like to get in touch with me to arrange a web-based event or consulting meeting with your company or organization, you can find my contact info in the podcast notes below. Please make sure to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and share it with others if you find the content valuable. Thank you. And now, on to today's podcast. In our last podcast, episode 91, I spoke about the Truman Doctrine and the merits of preserving today's world order led by America and the West. In today's podcast, episode 92, I'll speak about why some companies and societies succeed so dramatically, whilst most others fail, and why the vast majority of contributions to our modern world are so concentrated in certain places. Let's get started. On September 12, 1962, President John F. Kennedy delivered a famous speech in Houston, Texas, that has come to be known as the Address at Rice University. On that day, Kennedy roused the American nation with an unprecedented challenge: land a man on the surface of the moon before the end of the decade and bring him back to Earth safely. In the early 1960s, America was in the grip of a Cold War with the Soviet Union, an ideological battle that the Americans were losing as a result of recent Soviet advancements in the space race. It was a race that all non-aligned nations were watching carefully, since the knowledge, mastery, and subjugation of space had emerged as a critical indicator of ideological supremacy between communism and liberal democracy. Whoever won this race would be seen as ideologically supreme in the eyes of so many non-aligned nations. News of what would soon become the pièce de résistance of the Kennedy administration rattled many in the scientific community, particularly those at the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA. NASA complained to the president and other administration officials that they had no idea how to address most every major scientific and technological hurdle, whether large or small, that would need to be overcome to fulfill this ambitious vision. Upon hearing NASA's response, Kennedy threatened to fire its leadership team. Of course, the threat of being dismissed by the President of the United States tends to force people to sit up straight in their chairs and to urgently seek clarity of thought. In this brief window, NASA's leadership team asked for a second chance to put together a plan. President Kennedy was assassinated in November 1963 whilst on a visit to Dallas, and his vice president, Lyndon Johnson, was promptly sworn in on the same Air Force One flight used to return Kennedy's body to Washington. In contrast to President Kennedy's purely ideological vision and his passion for resoundingly defeating communism, President Johnson was genuinely interested in the lunar mission for its own sake. He felt deeply about the importance of scientific and technological advancement to America's standing in the post-war world. So, with President Johnson's continuing support, Kennedy's grand challenge to the nation progressed unabated throughout the decade. On July 20th, 1969, Apollo 11 landed on the surface of the moon, thus fulfilling Kennedy's extraordinary vision. Throughout that decade, and for all 11 Apollo missions, 20,000 American corporations with more than 400,000 employees worked together in a mind-bending symphony. It was perhaps the most remarkable achievement humankind had ever witnessed. And even though it has now been nearly 53 years since that mission, Apollo remains a critical case study and an important opportunity for introspection and reflection for all humankind. Specifically from the perspective of how we can best enable human achievement, the Apollo mission was an extraordinary demonstration of humankind's superpower, the ability to establish and nurture flexible, large networks of cooperation. Interestingly, when asked to identify humankind's superpower, most people will point to our cognitive ability. They will emphatically state that our cognition is incomparable to that of any other species. Although intelligence has always been the most important asset humankind has, labeling human intelligence as our superpower would not be correct. We know from the Apollo case that if we engage our minds in flexible and large networks of cooperation, we can amplify and magnify human intelligence by many orders of magnitude. To borrow a term from the lexicon and philology of computer science, these networks of cooperation can offer us massively parallel processing capability. In other words, an array of human minds in such networks of cooperation have been shown to achieve the truly extraordinary, whereas when simply acting on our own, the evidence shows that humans will generally be far more limited in our capacity to achieve. In fact, most of humankind's greatest achievements have required this coordinated symphonic approach in varying degrees. Now, although conceptually easy to understand, strangely enough, such large networks of cooperation are, in fact, surprisingly rare in history and across geographies and societies. They do not seem to ubiquitously manifest themselves. Rather, they tend to emerge within only a few select companies or within a few subcultures or communities within society. Upon closer examination, we find that company or societal cultures which are open, free, and tolerant to challenges of virtually any nature and from any perspective often provide the environment where bright, creative, and inquisitive minds from across society and from across geographies are drawn. There, these individuals feel uninhibited in their native desire to critically and rationally challenge views or ideological premises with others. Views or ideological premises which may have been long held, but which may nevertheless rest on weak rational bases. In other words, cultures in which the networks of cooperation, which enable continuous company or societal advancement and achievement, blossom and thrive, are the antithesis of doctrinal or dogmatic in their nature. Any surviving doctrines and dogmas in the culture are not considered sacred and can therefore always be challenged and dispensed with if they cannot be defended with rational arguments. To this day, more than 50 years since the Apollo 11 mission to land a man on the moon, very few countries on Earth have been capable of replicating such a feat. It is not due to cost. NASA had forecast that the Apollo 11 mission would cost between $20 and $40 billion, whilst the actual cost was about $19.5 billion. In comparison, Americans spent more on cigarettes in any year of the 1960s. Rather, the real inhibitor of success for most of the world has been the authoritarian culture so prominent and pervasive amongst the overwhelming majority of companies and societies. This culture is so inextricably embedded in their psychology that it becomes virtually impossible to change or extricate. As artificial intelligence and other fourth industrial revolution technologies are introduced into and then integrated within these networks of cooperation, the achievements, contributions, and the intellectual divide between the authoritarian societies that reject the open, free culture of the most advanced societies and themselves will only grow until it reaches a permanent, unbreachable chasm. Thank you for spending some time with me. I'm trying to follow the TED Talk format, and so I'm keeping these podcasts under 20 minutes. Let me know what you think. I hope you'll find these insights into artificial intelligence helpful, and I hope you'll read my new book, The Genome Affair. It's on Amazon. Until next time then, this has been the AI and You podcast with author Vicar Saidi.